Okay, wrapping up the letter from the translators to the reader. This is in the preface of the King James 1611. I wish they would, it would be nice if somebody would have undertaken to, of course, update the spelling of the letter to the translators and put that in the front of the King James Bibles. I think, in my opinion, based on the evidence, I think that we may not have had the extreme instances of the King James only movement that we've had, because the translators themselves present so many evidences that are contrary to that position. Anyway, that's just my opinion. It would be nice if they did it, but they didn't. Okay, continuing on. Let's see. Some peradventure would have no variety of senses to be set in the margin, lest the authority of the Scriptures for deciding of controversies by that shew of uncertainty should somewhat be shaken. What they're saying is there were some that were saying that they shouldn't put things in the margin, like alternate renderings, alternate wordings, things like that, because they think that it would shaken somebody's confidence in the Word of God. The King James Bible you buy today does not really have those in the margins like they did originally. New translations do, and that has become a source of argument from the King James only movement for that reason. But if they knew historically what the original 1611 was like, I don't think they would have ever made that argument. But let's look at some of those as I continue with this. They quote Augustine here, and I think that it's well, let me back up before I go to that. Talking about this margin issue, we hold their judgment not to be so sound in this point. For though whatsoever things are necessary are manifest, as Saint Chrysostom said, and as Saint Augustine, in those things that are plainly set down in the Scriptures, all such matters are found that concern faith, hope, and charity. Yet for all that it cannot be dissembled, and that partly to exercise and whet our wits, partly to wean the curious from loathing of them for their everywhere plainness, partly also to stir up our devotion to crave the assistance of God's Spirit by prayer, and lastly, that we might be forward to seek aid of our brethren by conference, and never scorn those that be not in all respects so complete as they should be, being to seek in many things ourselves, it hath pleased God in his divine providence here and there to scatter words and sentences of that difficulty and doubtfulness, not in doctrinal points that concern salvation, for in such it hath been vouched that the Scriptures are plain, but in matters of less moment, that fearfulness would better be seen us than confidence. And if we will resolve upon modesty with St. Augustine, that not in this same case altogether, yet upon the same ground. It is better to make doubt of those things which are secret, than to strife about those things that are uncertain. There be many words in Scriptures which be never found there but once, having neither brother nor neighbor, as the Hebrews speak, so that we cannot be hoping by conference of places. Again, there be many rare names of certain birds, beasts, and precious stones, etc., concerning which the Hebrews themselves are so divided among themselves for judgment, that they may seem to have defined this or that, rather because they would say something, because they were sure of which they said, as Saint Jerome somewhere saith of the Septuagint. Now in such a case, doth not a margin do well to admonish the reader to seek further, and not to conclude or dogmatize upon this or that peremptorily? For as it is a fault of incredulity to doubt of those things that are evident, so to determine of such things as the Spirit of God hath left, even in the judgment of the judicious, questionable, can be no less than presumption. So they're defending their use of margins to show that there's a lot of uncertainty in the Word of God. There's things that we don't understand. And they're actually saying that those things are there to humble us so that we don't get proudful that we know everything. And then they quote St. Augustine with this next one. I want to point this one out. Therefore, as St. Augustine saith, that variety of translations is profitable for the finding out of the sense of the Scriptures. So diversity of signification and sense in the margin, where the text is not so clear, must needs do good, yea, is necessary, as we are persuaded. We know that Sixtus Quintus, which I think is a Catholic, expressly forbiddeth that any variety of readings of their vulgar edition should be put in the margin, which though it be not altogether the same thing to what we have in hand, yet it looketh that way. But we think he hath not all of his own side his favourers for this conceit. They that are wise hath rather have their judgment at liberty in differences of readings, than to be captivated to one, when it may be the other. If they were sure that their high priest had all laws shut up in his breast, as Paul II bragged, and that he were as free from error by special privilege, as the dictators of Rome were made by law inviolable, it were an other matter. Then his word were an oracle, his opinion a decision. But the eyes of the world are now open, God be thanked, and have been a great while. They find that he is subject to the same affections and infirmities that others be, that his skin is penetrable, and therefore, so much as he proveth, not as much as he claimeth, they grant and embrace. So see, they quoted Augustine saying that a variety of translations is profitable to get the sense of the Scriptures out. We see this in the manuscript evidence. This is why the new translations are based on pulling all the manuscript evidence together to compare the text to try to get a fuller sense, a better sense of what the Scriptures say. So see, if the 1611 King James was supposed to be the end-all to English translations, then why would they put that in there? Why would they say that they are persuaded that it is necessary to have these marginal notes showing where a difference of reading can be applied, and also that Augustine says that a variety of translations is profitable for the finding out of the sense of Scriptures? See, it doesn't match up. And dealing with this is another strong point that has convinced me that the King James only position is not the correct position. You decide. I mean, the translators themselves put this in there. That ends the letter to the reader.